The Diamondbacks signed Corbin Carroll to an 8-year extension. Let's fucking go.
No more chairs need to be beat up, Derek.
Oh, I don't care. I have this just in case. Sometimes I get too excited and I need to hit the chair too. Welcome in, of course. This is an emergency podcast here at PHNX D-backs. I am your host, occasionally known as the mayor of PHNX, Derek Montilla. These guys, you know them so well. To my right in the little screen, I guess you could say, is the one and only vice mayor and thunderstick, Jesse Friedman. And down below there is the one and only father overlord himself, Jacob. Jacob, thank you for joining us. I appreciate you also being here to scream and yell about Corbin Carroll reportedly agreeing to terms on an 8-year contract extension. What in the world is going on? Let's fucking go, you guys.
I mean, we've heard about this for a few days, right? This has been,
I didn't believe it though.
Yeah, I know. Derek's always a little skeptical about these sorts of things until they actually happen. But we did get a report earlier today from Nick Pecora of the Arizona Republic that the Diamondbacks were making progress on an extension with Corbin Carroll, which did help explain something that happened yesterday that we discussed in yesterday's show. If you all recall, if you joined us yesterday, you know that Corbin Carroll was mysteriously removed from the Arizona Diamondbacks lineup before yesterday's game against the Cincinnati Reds. After the game, I asked Torey Lovello what was going on there, and he said that Carroll was perfectly healthy, that he wasn't late. It was not any kind of disciplinary action. And we were all, frankly, very confused about why Torey had just made what appeared to be a very random manager's decision. And then Nick Pecora came out with that report today that talks with Corbin Carroll and the Diamondbacks were progressing. And that does explain why Corbin Carroll was removed from the lineup. Apparently, before you would finalize a big extension like this, you would need a physical to happen. You would need to go through all of the various formalities that would come before a deal like this is made official. And we don't have that officially confirmed, but it looks like the reason Carroll was removed from the lineup was that the Diamondbacks were on the verge of signing him to the biggest extension in franchise history. And guys, I think this is a move the Diamondbacks absolutely had to make. Corbin Carroll is a very, very good baseball player. And yes, it is sort of insane to give a guy who has played about 30 games in the big leagues $111 million. But this is one of those situations where, I don't really think it is either. I think this is absolutely the right move for this baseball team.
I have $4 and I will give it all towards this contract extension. I would give every dime I have on me to it because this is the exact way the Arizona Diamondbacks need to build their franchise. There is no real other route for them because of the fact that this free agency market really has grown out of control to a point where the Diamondbacks really can't compete with the money that some of these other teams are offering. They've done an excellent job at finding young talent, at drafting well, at trading for these guys. We've talked about this core, and we've talked about Corbin Carroll being a huge part of defining what this core is for the D-backs. But man, I'll tell you, it's exciting because when you look at the other guys on this team, how they match up with Corbin Carroll as far as his time frame, his age and things like that, that you can see who the other members of this core are being developed. And, it just sends a good message to the rest of the team that the D-backs are invested in you guys and they are willing to keep you guys here long-term. Obviously they can't do this for everybody, but they could definitely start doing this with more of their guys the way that we've seen out of the Atlanta Braves.
Yeah, it took some time, but it seems like somebody has finally started to mold their organization the same way the Braves have, right? Like we've talked about this before. Alex Anthopoulos is probably the best general manager in baseball, at least in my book, in the way that he's been able to ink some of his young kids to really long extensions that are seemingly extremely team friendly. I mean, you talk about a guy like Ronald Acuna, and you think that he probably should be worth north of $300 million, and he's sitting on a contract that's 8 years, 160 or something like that. It's
I think it was 100. 8 years,
yeah,
100 million is what Ronald Acuna signed. Yeah.
You think about that model, and this is such a repeatable thing for some of these teams like the Diamondbacks who might not have the payroll to be able to compete with the Dodgers, the Padres. I still am not convinced I know where the Padres' money is coming from anyways, but a team like the Diamondbacks, they don't have the ability to compete money-wise, right? So you draft a kid, and then you just bank on the fact that you're really good at developing them, right? Corbin Carroll looks like he's going to be the real deal, and so this deal made it was a no-brainer. It just made so much sense.
That's the thing is I'm not seeing a lot of people that have a lot of negative things to say. I do understand the apprehension, right? I understand not necessarily wanting to give this big of a contract to a kid that might not pan out. I don't think that's what we're seeing out of Corbin Carroll. I don't think Corbin Carroll is a prospect that quote unquote might not make it. Maybe I'm just too excited about it. Maybe I just, feel like I'm basing this on the short sample size that we've seen of him in the majors, but he just seems like a unique, special individual. We've seen him kind of adapt to major league life, right? Like Jesse and I were kind of commenting on how he's keeping a bit more of what he's working on and what he's doing and what works for him close to the vest. He doesn't come out with these lengthy explanations. In some cases, he has no problem now saying, yeah, I don't really want to discuss that, right? When it comes to certain things about his, aspects of his game, he's almost got that crafty veteran. I'm going to try to keep every advantage I can to myself to not give these guys scouting reports on what I'm working on. But I mean, he just absolutely looks like a different guy this year as far as his, how much he's developed his body, how much bigger he's gotten. And I think this is just a incredibly smart move to show a young player how committed you are to them as a huge part of the future of this team.
I mean, I honestly, Derek, I think Corbin Carroll was kind of a beast last year, and I think he's kind of a beast this year. I don't know if I necessarily see an enormous difference between last year and this year.
Are you kidding me? Oh my God! Don't make me show
those biceps were pretty big last year.
I don't know.
Derek. I don't know about that.
But I definitely seen him, continue to mature in lots of different ways, right? From speaking to him to seeing him play. Again, the talent that he displayed already at a minor league level last year and in the 30 games that he played for the Diamondbacks is enough for me to be like, yep, that's our guy. Lock him in. Let's keep him here for a long time. Right.
Right. It's enough for all three of us who watch these games, right? That we almost watch every single game. I almost do. You guys definitely do. Where it's like you saw that sample size last year and you're like, okay, yeah, he's definitely the real deal. But you do get people. I had a friend text me who doesn't watch a ton of D-backs games. He's like, so we just signed a guy for $111 million who hit 260 last year. And I was like, pump the brakes. Like, it's okay. You're signing on potential. You're not signing on exactly what you saw last year. And sure.
I would push back on that though. Like, yes, Corbin Carroll hit 260, but Corbin Carroll also had a 133 OPS plus, which I believe was the best on the Diamondbacks. Corbin Carroll was really freaking good last year.
Yes.
Like, the man slugged 500 and was worth 1.2 WAR. I want to say
30 games.
Yeah.
If you extrapolate Corbin Carroll's 32 games that he played in the big leagues last year over a full season, he's an MVP candidate. Like, it's easy to look at, the 260 or whatever, or kind of poke out certain numbers and be like, oh, I'm not that impressed. But Corbin Carroll was pretty darn good when he broke into the big leagues last year. And the reason the Diamondbacks came out and had to do this so early is because if Corbin Carroll does come out this year and just do what he did last year over a full season, or even something close to that, you're not getting this guy for $111 million. We saw the Mariners last year with Julio Rodriguez, right? The Mariners signed Julio Rodriguez to a guarantee of 13 years and $210 million with escalators up to $470 million. You can see Rodriguez's deal along with a couple of other ones on your screen here. That's how much it can cost for a guy who has just had the kind of season that we think Corbin Carroll will have this year. And that's why the Diamondbacks had to act quickly. If you wait and you allow Corbin Carroll to go out and have the season that a lot of people, including all three of us, are expecting him to have, that price tag is just going to get higher and higher and higher. And it is a gamble. Yes, I don't know if Corbin Carroll will be able to repeat the exact numbers that he had last year, but it's a gamble that you absolutely have to take if you're the Diamondbacks.
I don't think he's going to repeat those numbers. I think he's going to do substantially better. That's what I think.
That would be insane.
315, 20 homers, and 40 stolen bases is like a ceiling I could see being the ceiling.
And did we even talk about his defensive metrics and the fact that he had as many outs above average?
He was
as
the
Mookie
best left fielder in baseball, despite having played about 1/5 the number of innings as any other left fielder in the game. Yeah, Corbin Carroll's pretty good at the defense thing too.
He's excellent. I think the idea here is that Corbin Carroll obviously, wants to be a member of the Arizona Diamondbacks, or else I don't think he would have agreed to this. I think he's smart. I think he sees where he's at. He doesn't. He is in no desperation to sign a contract extension at this point in his career, and there's probably a part of him that is well aware of the amount of money he could potentially make had he waited to sign this contract extension, or waited inevitably to go to free agency. But there's just something about Carroll that doesn't seem to operate that way. Like, he seems to not, he doesn't want those kind of distractions in his game, right? Like, he just doesn't seem like that kind of person, right? Like, so I think that might be part of the reason why we see this is just committing to this team and wanting to go out there and do the thing that he wants to do. Paul Goldschmidt was very much like that. And I hate to even bring his name up in the context of contract extension talk, but that's the reason why I think
you mean because Paul Goldschmidt signed for 32 million? Is that what it was?
I'll fight you, Jesse, right now. I know we're not in the same building, but I'll go find you. But no, the contract extension with Paul Goldschmidt seemed very friendly, and a part of the reason, or what seemed very friendly, it fucking was friendly.
The Diamondbacks extension with Paul Goldschmidt was
extraordinarily
team friendly. The Cardinals extension with Paul Goldschmidt
still pretty friendly.
Pretty friendly. Yeah.
And I think part of that is that Goldie really was a guy that lived by that whole, I just want to go out there and hit the ball hard. Like, that's literally what he wanted to do. So he doesn't want this other stuff with contracts, and if he's going to stick around and stuff, to be a distraction or a story in any way, shape, or form. Not that Corbin Carroll was even close to that, but now he has 8 years with this organization, hopefully here the whole time, to just grow and play baseball and get better and become one of the best in the league. There's so many projections that he's going to be either the number 1 or number 2 prospect this year, but that goes beyond the whole prospects thing, right? This goes into, like, now him being kind of the guy for the Diamondbacks. They're not thrusting that pressure on him, but like, he really is now this, like, the crown jewel of what they're building around going forward.
I was gonna say, is he the face of the franchise now to you guys? Does this mean he's the face of the franchise?
He has to be, and not only does he have to be, but I think that that's something that fans very much want. Like, fans love Corbin Carroll, and honestly, over the last year of doing this show and talking with Jesse and being a part of this community, he's the name that everybody always brings up. Everybody was excited to see. Was by no means a disappointment when he came up to the majors, continued to be kind of this living legend that he is at a very young age, a very early stage in his career, but he just seems to be that guy. And I think the Diamondbacks recognized that in him. That's the reason why they wanted to lock him in as early as possible. And they knew the value that I think that they could potentially get by locking him in so early. It was a business savvy move by the organization and a pretty damn classy move by Corbin Carroll to if this contract extension is as we see it is, it's a pretty damn good move for him to lock it in for 8 years.
Speaking of business savvy moves, can we bring up that graphic one more time that just gives sort of some context? So I did a little bit of research, and these are kind of the position player contract extensions over the last couple of years that sort of compare to what the Diamondbacks just did with Corbin Carroll. And of course, what makes the Carroll extension especially unique and what separates it from, what the Diamondbacks did with Ketel Marte around this time last year is that Corbin Carroll has played literally, he has 38 days of major league service time, which is incredibly low. He spent about a month in a big league uniform, right? But this is a trend that we've started to see around baseball. And as you can see here, this has been done a few times over the last few years. So Wander Franco of the Tampa Bay Rays had 103 days of service when he signed an 11-year, $182 million deal with the Rays. So that's coming in at almost twice the total contract value is what the Diamondbacks just gave Carroll. Of course, Franco, one of the best prospects in baseball at the time, and I think still people would maybe view that deal as somewhat favorably. Franco is maybe not a superstar just yet, but still could be sort of trending in that direction. Michael Harris, a guy who won the Rookie of the Year award last year for the Atlanta Braves, he signed an 8-year, $72 million deal after 81 days of service. So that's a pretty good comparison right there. I think Corbin Carroll is widely viewed as a better prospect than Michael Harris, even though Harris had an outstanding season last year. I think he kind of burst on the scene in a way that maybe nobody really expected. But this deal is a little bit higher than that, but I think for probably a very good reason. I mean, Corbin Carroll is, widely considered the number 1 or number 2 prospect in the game, as you guys were talking about earlier. Michael Harris was never quite that guy. And then the other one on this list is Julio Rodriguez that I mentioned earlier. 13 years, $210 million. He had 141 days of service time. So the Mariners waited arguably a little bit too long, and they paid a pretty penny. I mean, they paid what Julio Rodriguez, I think, is worth, which I believe that deal escalates up to $470 million ultimately, which is pretty insane. This deal, one thing we haven't mentioned so far, it does have some escalators between 2029 and 2031. And there's also a club option in this deal as well. So the guarantee is 8 years, $111 million, but the maximum possible value of this deal is 9 years, $154 million, which is a big number, right? I mean, 154, that's a lot of money, right? That's a lot of money for a kid who's only played, has only logged 38 days of Major League service at this point. But I think when you take this deal in context with those other contracts that I just mentioned, it's kind of right where you'd expect it to be, right? It's lower than Julio Rodriguez. Rodriguez had an outstanding year. Maybe his prospect status was even a slight tick above where Corbin Carroll's was. Michael Harris had a pretty similar year last year to what a lot of people think Carroll will do this year, but I think Carroll's ceiling is probably a little bit higher. And then Wander Franco, a couple years back, that was a longer deal, 11 years. He broke into the majors at a little bit of a younger age. But I think that's also sort of comparable here. So in context with all those different contracts that have happened, this is pretty much market value. If anything, I think this probably tilts a little bit in the Diamondbacks' favor.
I agree with that. Now, I have one concern, or I guess one question is, how does this now impact an extension for Zac Gallen? Does this put pressure on the Diamondbacks to extend Gallen, or does it change anything in your guys' opinion?
I've been banging on that drum. I've been banging on that drum for the last
that's why
6
I brought
months.
that drum up, because you're here. But yeah, no, totally. I mean, I know how important that is. Jacob is very vocal about that, but I think we all are about how important it is to keep Zac Gallen in an Arizona Diamondbacks uniform. But I guess just kind of lighten the fire a little bit, just playing devil's advocate here. Does this put pressure on the Diamondbacks to sign Gallen, and does it make the situation potentially worse if a contract extension doesn't happen anytime soon?
I think Gallen's number is a lot higher than this one.
Yes. Yeah.
Gallen's number is a lot higher than this one, which obviously is what Jesse always references when I bring this up, because it feels like the number for Gallen, while we don't know the exact number, it feels like it might be just slightly out of the price range. Like, it just feels like it's in the realm of possibility that it doesn't seem likely. You're banking on the fact that if you go out and you start to compete, a guy like Zac Gallen, who we've seen over the last couple months have kind of taken a personality as, this fiery guy who really wants to win. Like, if you start to win, maybe you run the possibility that he signs a team-friendly extension, but he knows what he's worth. And his agent obviously knows what he's worth. And so unless you're probably willing to fork up north of $250 million, I'm not sure you're going to get it.
I don't think it would cost quite that much. I don't think Gallen's price tag is quite that high. I mean, you look at like what Carlos Rodon got last year or over the offseason from the Yankees. I think that was 162 over 6 years, I want to say. Gallen maybe a little north of that, just because he doesn't have the crazy injury past that Carlos Rodon does. Sure. So I think it's a little bit higher than 162. Obviously, there's going to be some inflation that happens over the next few years as well, until Gallen hits the market. I've said it before and I'll say it again, and I know nobody wants to hear it. I don't think the Diamondbacks are going to sign an extension with Zac Gallen. You look at Scott.
I told you I had this bat here for a reason, Jacob. You thought I didn't know. I knew Jesse was going to say some shit like that.
Unfortunately, you look at Scott Boris's history, right? And it's not that he's never signed contract extensions. He absolutely has. Steven Strasburg signed a crazy extension with the Washington Nationals. There are other names that have done the same, but I don't think I think that if Gallen was going to sign that deal, I think it probably would have happened by now. The closer that you get to free agency with a Scott Boras client, it's just not something that we've really ever seen a Scott Boras client do. And I'd be pretty surprised. I mean, I don't know if that, I don't think Gallen's going to take any kind of a discount signing that deal early. And so I think even if you're the Diamondbacks and you want to bring Zac Gallen back, I don't know if it even makes that big of a difference whether you try to do that now or whether you just wait until Gallen hits free agency. And my guess is Scott Boras and Gallen wouldn't be willing to.
You're losing us subscribers like as we speak.
The chat is depressed because of Jesse.
I think, but the other thing that I will say about this is that the fact that the Diamondbacks, so I wouldn't say that extending Corbin Carroll puts pressure to extend Zac Gallen, but I will say that not extending Zac Gallen does put pressure on the Diamondbacks to really get their crap together over the next few years, right? You've got 3 years left of a possibly Cy Young caliber starting pitcher. And I think there's some excitement that can come with the D-backs know that they've got 3 years of Zac Gallen left, and they're going to have to make it count, right? This is a time for this franchise to push the chips in and try to do everything that they possibly can to contend. We've seen a decent number of moves this offseason, maybe a few more than we would have expected coming into it. And if the Diamondbacks are able to go out and Corbin Carroll is able to have the year that we're hoping he will be, and this team takes a step forward, you could be looking at next offseason as a time when the Diamondbacks are like, all right, it's time to go. It's time to actually spend some real money in free agency and try to move the ball forward.
So Brett Johnson just showed up, by the way. Brett Johnson proceeded to call himself Brett Stradamus. There's a lot of that going on around here. A lot of people that can see the future. Jesse thinks he can see the future. Brett can. But during yesterday's podcast live on Friday night, when we talked about Corbin Carroll being scratched from the lineup, our man Brett actually said that it was due to the fact that he was out signing a contract extension. He threw an LOL on the end of it, or an LMAO, which kind of detracts.
It was a joke, but it wasn't, right?
But
he was pretending to sound like he couldn't predict the future, when in fact, apparently Brett Lee
That's
Johnson
what you would do when you
can
predict the future. You pretend like you can't. You don't want people to know that shit. Zac Gallen very much knows what he's worth, by the way. We saw the video from MLB The Show 2023 where Zac Gallen was required to put his rating down and then reveal underneath the little piece of paper what his actual rating was. Now, he wasn't that far off for his overall rating. I think he rated himself a 92 and he was an 89, but he was upset that it wasned a 90.
I think it was a 94. I think it was 94.
Yeah. But what really grinded his gears, I don't know how I could say that in the past tense. It grinded his gears was his hits per nine. He was very upset with his average for his hit per nine, so much so that he said, I need to go talk to some of these developers at
he led baseball. He literally led baseball in hit per nine last year. So for him to not have an extremely high hit per nine rating,
furious.
I get it.
Yeah, he was furious. And I you could see it because it's like, ha ha ha, but you can tell deep down inside there was just blackness and anger. That was all that was inside of him. But there's no anger today. Today is a celebration. It is Corbin Carroll Day. If you celebrate such things, because Corbin Carroll has signed an 8-year contract extension with the Arizona Diamondbacks, keeping him here for a very, very long time. I thought my Xbox Game Pass membership that I just picked up by doing a little trick with getting the gold and then adding the dollar thing, and then I thought that was a long time. That's a 3-year deal. This is an 8-year contract extension, and I guess I understand anybody that might be apprehensive about this. I just suggest you wait and see what young Corbin Carroll does this season with a full major league season in left field, let alone center field or wherever else he moves around to, because it's going to be fun to watch.
Can I address one more? Can I address one more thing? I think I want to say Kyle.
Wait. Are you going to be negative? Are you going to be negative?
No.
Okay.
No, this is not negative. This is not negative.
Because that puts it puts fire in my blood. You know that.
Fire
your negativity
blood.
puts fire in my blood.
So I think it was Kyle Dannon who made a comment about this earlier that I want to address. the question of basically why isn't this a longer deal? I mentioned the Julio Rodriguez deal, right? That can be 13 years. I think it can even extend out longer if like certain things are triggered in the contract. The Julio Rodriguez contract is probably the most complicated contract extension in like all of sports history. But yeah, there's a very valid question of like, why didn't the Diamondbacks try to make this 10 or 11 year deal? This deal brings Corbin Carroll through his age 30 season. If the Diamondbacks pick up that club option for 2031, they would have Corbin Carroll through his age 30 season. Why not have Corbin Carroll through his age 33 or age 34 season or something like that? I think it's a good question. My guess is that was more Corbin Carroll's side of the situation than the Diamondbacks side. If you're Corbin Carroll, you probably feel pretty good that after your age 30 season, you can go out and you can get paid again. And I think that was
maximum deal. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think he probably had some hesitation with going, into age 32, age 33 territory, because at that point it's like, all right, this might be like your one big contract of your entire career. As a 22-year-old, that's kind of a tough pill to swallow maybe when you're a guy as talented as Corbin Carroll is. Yeah. So my guess is the Diamondbacks might have tried. They might have tried to make this longer.
Not even a guess. Like, I know we have no information to confirm it, but I guarantee they tried to make it longer. 1,000%.
I mean, there is a flip side for them, right? Like, I guess once you get to the back half of age 30, from the Diamondbacks perspective, they could be like, we don't know.
Jesse,
we don't necessarily know what
Padres are signing people until they're 45 years old. Don't even tell me that they're worried about how he's going to perform on the other side of 30. I'm going to be 42 in less than 14 days. Don't even give me that bullshit, all right? I'm not ready to hear it. I need you to stop right now, because there is no way they had any concerns about how he would perform after that. You hit the nail on the head before. There is no way that the Diamondbacks didn't try to make this an 18-year deal. I would have made it a 20-year deal if it was me. That's just me, though. I'm very reactionary. I don't think things through. So the Diamondbacks probably went for 14 at least. 14, 13,
yeah, we'll call it 14, Derek. We'll call it 14.
Maybe 15. Let's say 15. I like 15 and slice them around. But anyway, don't you dare ever question athleticism on the other side of 30. I know you're 24 years old. I get it. Oh, Jacob, I just got 100 years older listening to Jesse say that stuff, and I had to stop it. I'm ready to go party and celebrate this Corbin Carroll news, because I feel like we won a World Series. So anything else? You guys got anything else? What do you think this says for the young guys, right?
Like, who's next? That's my last question, is who's next?
Yeah. I don't know. They have Ketel Marte locked up for the at least for the next couple of years, right?
Gabby Moreno's interesting. We just saw the Nationals sign an 8-year deal with Keibert Ruiz, who is actually a fairly similar player to Gabby Moreno. I think Moreno's prospect status is maybe a little bit higher than Ruiz's was. And I think Moreno has looked good early in his big league career, a little bit more so than Ruiz. Ruiz is not taken to the big leagues offensively quite how maybe some people thought. But yeah, I wouldn't rule it out completely. I think with catchers, you're always a little bit wary about. Derek's going to freak out on me again. But once catchers get past age 30,
I'm going to mute myself. Go ahead.
I just muted Jesse, Derek. We can just finish this.
Okay. That's actually the better idea. I was like, I'm going to freak out right now, so you guys could just mute me and I'll just be like, ah! But anyway, no, that's better to mute Jesse. Just mute him for the rest of the show. I think this is a great option, and we should explore this on further episodes. But Jesse, did you have anything to say? No? Okay, moving on.
I'm trying to give rational analysis over here, Derek.
Finish your statement, yes.
So yeah, I think all that to say, I think the Diamondbacks would potentially be interested in doing something similar with Gabby Moreno. You guys are ridiculous. So that I do think that's something to monitor. I think it would probably be similar, maybe an 8-year deal, something like that would bring Moreno right up until he turns 30. And I think as far as who's next, in terms of some of the prospects that we haven't seen at the big league level yet, Jordan Lawler very well could make his big league debut at the end of this season in very similar fashion to what Carroll did last year. I'm not going to rule out the possibility that a year from now we're having a very similar conversation about Jordan Lawler bursting on the scene in late 2023 and the Diamondbacks locking him in to a long-term extension around this time next year. I think that's certainly possible. And of course, you've got Drew Jones, not that far away as well. So those are the main names that come to mind for me.
One name that comes to mind for some reason is Jake McCarthy. And the only reason why I say that is because Jake is technically listed, according to the fine folks at Sony, as the fifth best player on the Arizona Diamondbacks. Not position player, fifth best overall player. So
no,
I don't know.
At Sony he has the fifth highest MLB The Show rating.
That's what I'm talking about. Yes, Jesse, that's exactly what I'm talking about. But you have that entire outfield that is very, very, very much part of what the Diamondbacks want to do in the future. You have Alek Thomas, speaking of which, who was 1 for 4 with 2 runs for Team Mexico today. So, I mean, I know that they are not all Corbin Carroll. They're not all getting, I guess, the praise and all of this good thing that Corbin Carroll is getting. And Corbin Carroll is absolutely deserving of that. This was a great deal for the Diamondbacks, but they still have work to do. And in seeing what we've seen from the Braves, and I hate to constantly point that out, but it's what I want. It's what I think would build this team in the right in the right way. And honestly, I don't think I've ever been as positive as I've been about these young guys, right? Like the young players that they have now, they all seem like they're something special, right? Like it's not like this hope and crossing your fingers. I remember for a while that Dalton Varsho was like our Lord and Savior at one point in the minor leagues because he was the only thing that any of us were talking about at one point, right? So there's just things have changed significantly for this team through the way they've drafted and through the way that they've acquired guys like Moreno through trade. So like this is building in a direction where the Diamondbacks truly have the base for a successful baseball team, right? And should they lose guys like Zac Gallen, they still have other young studs that they could also do this with in their system, like Ryan Nelson, like Dre Jameson, and like Brandon Pfaadt. So the future isn't that far off. And should we lose some of our best players due to free agency and other reasons, I feel like they have some pretty substantial backups ready to go in the minors that just need that, need that opportunity to play. Right now, the Diamondbacks are actually 2 stacked at starting pitching. And in what world would I have ever said that at any point last season, or especially in fucking 2021, right? So I don't
know if I would say 2 stacked at starting pitching just yet, Derek. Just yet.
I don't know.
The depth is good though. The depth.
So much negativity on such a great day.
I really don't like it. Can we mute him again? I think we can mute him again. You can do that. I can't do that anymore. I've lost all the muting power. But anyway, we thank you guys for joining us here, and keep it locked right here to PHNX for more on the Arizona Diamondbacks. We will be back on Monday with our Mailbag Monday episode and more from what happened this weekend, including Brandon Pfaadt's rough outing against the Reds on Friday night and the results of this weekend's game. So we thank you guys for being here. You can follow us on Twitter. I'm at Cap_caveman with a K. Jesse is at Jesse N. Friedman. Jacob is at Jacob_Franklin4. Our show's at PHNX D-backs, but of course, all roads lead to at PHNX_sports on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. We thank you guys so much. And remember, kids, baseball is fun, but it is so much more fun when you sign Corbin Carroll to an 8-year contract extension. Let's go!